They're yours. Hit that one more time. I am the number one determinant of the success or failure. Here we go. Of my students. Hey, y'all, you have a strong summer. Kick some butt next year. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate you. That's the mindset. That's the attitude. Love you guys.
And we are live. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to week 121 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy with your host, Principal Kafele. Let me see who's in the building. We got here Demetrius Scott, my brother. We got Marsha Poe, my sister out there in San Diego, came on out to the School Leadership Institute with Principal Kafele, all the way from San Diego. What a blessing, what an honor that was. We got Dr. Roz Gaskin in the building out there in DMV. We got D. Walker, Takesha High. We got Nyerka Coy Bush is in the building. Lysandra Brackens, Dr. Sheikah Houston is in the building, along with the soon-to-be Dr. Tammy Taylor. We got Principal Dot McKeever Jeter in the building. We got Talima Chesney. That's a word. That's a name I haven't seen. Welcome aboard, Talima. We got Rodney Richardson, John Herrick, Cynthia Farmer, Nicole White, Corinne Orabelle Warren in the building. My man, Vashawn Smith. You know, Vashawn, I'm already prepping for our interview next week. And I was listening to some podcasts that you were on, and the way that your name was pronounced was Vashawn, right? Unless that was a regional accent, right? By the host. So I'm not sure. You'll tell me later. But my man Vashawn Smith is in the building. I should say Dr. Vashawn Smith is in the building. He'll be my guest next week. So we'll talk about that later. We got Otis Kitchen, Rashad Davis out there in Vegas, man. I got to get out there soon, man. I miss Vegas. Willie Lanier, John Few, Janine Wilkins. I always don't say the middle part. Separano Wilkins is in the building. Tonya Pugh is in the building. My wife, the queen. Kimberly Broughton Kafele is in the building. Stephanie Bishop, Priscilla Alexander, Corinne Mason, my man, Principal Sean Hurt, man. Sean Hurt is doing some special stuff, man. You know, it's a lot of us out here that do this work. But I got to tell you, Principal Sean Hurt, he doing something a little bit different, man. You know, we talked to you about this and we talked to you about that. But Principal Sean Hurt said, let me focus on this thing called achievement. And let me show you how to take your achievement levels to another level, right? Call that brother, Sean Hurt, right? I endorse him with no reservation, nor hesitation. Principal Sean Hurt, get him in your building, right? That's my commercial. So we got Professor Sherrod Lamont Laws in the building. We got Melissa Jones Chunu, Laura Mayer, Yolanda McKinney, good morning. We got James Wilburn, A. Austri in the building, Alan Q. Cowarts in the building, Letisa Nichols. Where we at? Anthony Holly. I haven't seen that name. Grand Rising out there in California. I appreciate you, man. You got up early. I appreciate that. Lucy Strawley is in the building. Vanessa Zeskind is in the building. Edwin Garcia, my man, in the building. Stacy Joseph. Kelly Groshen says from sunny New Jersey. Yeah, it's nice today, man. I was out there for a minute. Scott Wiley, it's good to be home too, man. It ain't gonna be that long, but Lewis Saunders, good to see you, my brother. Used to be my colleague in the great city of East Orange, New Jersey. Darlene Pettit, I'm almost done, y'all. Tiffany Curry, and Sean's in Detroit, he just says, so that's up there in the D, Detroit, Michigan. We got where we at? Jocelyn Nelson's in the building. I'm getting ready to wrap it up. Lakeisha Mabry is in the building because I got a dynamite guest on here this morning, man. I ain't wasting no time. Claudine Nelson's in the building. Isabel Colon is in the building. Charlene Williams, Asia Burnett. Where we at? Where we at? I'm getting ready to wrap this up. One more. Tiffany Blunt's in the building and Kimberly Carruthers. I see you. Oh, I got to get Jersey, man. We got Karima Anque in the building. She's from North doing big things. I gotta shout her out. Now let me go. I better not see another Jersey name because you know I gotta shout out Jersey, man. Look here, y'all. It's time. In fact, I got a Jersey guest. So you know we got to get going. So let me say to everybody formally, good morning. Greetings. Welcome to week 121 of the virtual AP Leadership Academy. And hey, man, I say it all the time. You know what I'm getting ready to say. I don't know about you. However, I think I know because you're here. And matter of fact, get some other folks here with you. Hit that share button, hit that retweet button as you're here. But again, I think I know because you did check in this morning. But, you know, as the host of the platform, I just got to let you know how I feel. I got to let you know because you might not know. You may not be able to sense it. So I just want you to know that right now, I'm on fire. Whew. I got to get that out every week, man. Yo, when I'm in that hotel, I can't do it like that, man, because I don't want nobody banging on my door, the front desk ringing the phone. But I'm not in a hotel, and I'm not scheduled to be out on the road on a Saturday for the next couple of months, I think, right? So I got to get that out because I want to set the tone that as we start this broadcast, I'm where I need to be emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, in fact, mentally, but in fact, I'll even say physically. I'm in a good space, man. I've been on that treadmill all week, man. I'm getting my stuff done. I'm writing that book. Oh man, I'm more than halfway finished with the book. I only started it 2 weeks ago. I'll be done by mid-September. Then we'll go through the editing and the revisions and all that kind of stuff. But I'm saying that it's because of my energy. So let me tell you one more time in case you didn't hear me. I'm on fire. Wow! Yes, that's how I'm feeling, man. So if you checked in this morning and you're not bringing that kind of energy, yo, you better snatch some of this from me because I'm feeling it so big right now. I'm on fire! Woo! Yeah! That's how I'm feeling! Woo! My wife probably said he tripping this morning, man. Dang, what the heck was he smoking? Right? So I don't smoke. So let me go through my quick commentary, y'all. I'm calling it, I wrote it in capital letters. This is your year. That's it, y'all. This is your year. See, I'm saying to you, you know what the past 2 years were. But life didn't get tough in the past 2 years. It was tough before that in terms of the education space. This ain't, no challenges, obstacles, pressures, demands. That's nothing new. It's just that it got accentuated, right? It was amplified. But it was always tough. But you endured it. That's the thing. You withstood it. That's the thing. So I'm saying to you, I'm proclaiming to you that this is your year. And see, that's the attitude you got to have. That's the mindset you got to have. It's your year. I got my plane here. It's your year to soar, man. Like we go with takeoff, right? So this way, it's your year to soar. I got United because that's what I fly, man. Million Mile Man, right? So I'm saying to you, own it. Own those words, those 4 words. Claim them. Embrace them, right? This is your year. And now make that your reality. That's all I'm saying, right? Let's go, y'all. Quick announcements. First timers on today, welcome. Don't let this be your last, but it is appreciated to see you. Understand, this platform is all about the role of the assistant principal, which asks the question, does my assistant principal leadership benefit my school academically? Again, does my assistant principalship benefit my school academically? That's what this is about. Because as I say all the time, the assistant principalship is the most misunderstood and underutilized position in all of education. This platform is a portion of my work to change that. So welcome to the first timers. Congrats to all them folks still writing me saying they got them jobs. You know, I thought that was going to kind of wane now that we're almost in September. I'm still getting them emails, man. I'm still getting them DMs. I'm still getting those inboxes. People are watching this faithfully. They're watching the interview videos. They're getting hired. But as I always say, now the heavy lifting begins, right? You know, I always got to do this, man. The newest joint, the Equity and Social Justice Education 50. If you don't have it, just pull out your other device. Get it now. Get it out the way. Somebody keeps putting it off every week. Oh, I'm gonna do it after the broadcast, and then you forget. Get it right now. And then while you're at it, the Assistant Principal 50. If you don't have this book, man, this is the biggest sell I ever wrote. It's incredible, right? Get yourself a copy. But you know, I'm writing volume 2 right now, volume 3 next year, volume 4 the year following. I am committed to this role of the assistant principal, but then the aspiring principal 50. The one book I wrote that I mistitled. This title confuses the heck out of so many people because nobody knows who it's for. It's for anybody that wants to one day become a principal, although you're not even an assistant principal one day. It's for you, right? So get yourself a copy. You can go to Amazon and get them all right now. I got a whole other stack of books I wrote, but I ain't gonna bore you with that. That's for another time, right? So lastly, I'm not repping the Negro Leagues today. I put on my George Foster Big Red Machine 1970s home run hitting George Foster, man. Big Red Machine, Cincinnati Reds. I'm rocking this proudly this morning. So, you know, it's not a Negro League shirt, but it's a bad brother that wore this number 15 that used to hit them homers right out of the park. That's enough with my announcements. My topic today is how is my leadership, and I'm putting emphasis on the word my here, how is my leadership impacting each, and I'm putting emphasis on this word each of my students. Once again, how is my leadership impacting each of my students? I got a dynamite guest here. I'm getting ready to bring her up here right now, and her name is Dr. Tonya Breland. Hey, Dr. Breland, which I'm going to call you Doc and Tonya simultaneously. You know, we mix it up, but I got to ask you first and foremost, how are you?
I'm on fire. I mean, you just started this thing off. I know you do this every week, but you just kicked this off with the energy that we need to make today a special day. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
I'm glad you're here. We got Jersey in the building, y'all. We all Jersey
That's right.
today. All right, best state in the union. We Jersey. Hey, Tonya, let them know who you are. I'm gonna read your bio. Hey, y'all, check it out. Tonya Breland has a passion and commitment to increase access and opportunities for those who have been historically marginalized, particularly Black and Brown students, and has dedicated her life's work to ensuring equity in education and other sectors. Through her research, she birthed a framework for sustainable equity planning in which she helps districts identify areas where they are equitable, have inadequate capacity, or are vulnerable to inequities. Her work is also transferable to organizations looking to address matters of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tonya served as principal, curriculum supervisor, and has been a sought-after trainer, coach, consultant, speaker to school districts, individuals, and other organizations. She also taught in the New Jersey Excel program, preparing professionals for licensure to become school and district administrators. She served as director of the Office of Professional Learning and as deputy assistant commissioner at the New Jersey Department of Education. She is also the founder of Teach Educators and Scholars Organization, an educational consulting firm that provides consulting, coaching, and training to educators and leaders. Tonya is a highly respected national Milken Educator Award-winning educational leader with a lifelong mission to make a difference in the lives of others. She authored Fight to Make It Happen and Michaela Mitchell Moves Away. She is passionate about empowering and inspiring people to live their dreams and fulfill their purpose. Tonya is a graduate of Howard University. Nova,
Sorry.
HU. who was that, hubby?
No, that's me. I
just said that. Okay. But you know, my daughter's from Hampton, so we rep the other HU.
Other HU.
But which is the real HU. But that's another conversation. No, so Nova Southeastern University and New York University, where she received her Doctor of Education in Leadership and Innovation. And then there's another piece that I added that she didn't add, and I'm sure she probably wouldn't, but I have it here. Tonya is also the mother of country music international sensation Breland. So you may have seen that name without the first name, just Breland, Breland, superstar, just came on the scene like bam, and nominated for a country music award this year. So I sat here and watched him on television, and now he's on the world tour. And that's her son. For those of you that keep up with country music and know a little something about Breland, this is his mom sitting here on the screen. With that said, let's jump into it. You know, Tonya, I got 3 questions that I ask all my guests, and I want to throw them at you. Number 1, as an educator, who is Dr. Tonya Breland?
I'm somebody who, that's a great question, by the way. It's not a question that I think about. But if I were to, really think about who I am as an educator, I'm somebody who really cares about the opportunities that students have access to. I'm the educator who believes that we need to have high expectations for all of our students. Actually, that's something that bothers me a lot when I see educators not pushing students, in particular our students, and they make assumptions about the intellect or the capacity of our students. As an educator, I'm very passionate about leadership. I believe as a leader, I have a lot of influence on those who are in my sphere of influence. I just believe that everybody has a purpose, and that part of our role as educators is to help young people find and discover who they are and what they're put on this earth to do, and to steer them in the direction of being able to thrive in that space, whatever it is that they've been called to do.
I love that, helping, that last part really resonates, helping young people to find who they are,
mm-hmm.
and what they were put on this earth to do, their purpose in life, that, it's, I tell people all the time, and we were kind of talking somewhat about that offline in terms of myself. I just found, and I said, that's my purpose for my life. And it's like, I was listening to a podcast, Tonya, the other day, and the guest asked the host, what's your dream? And I remember what was said, but I internalized it. And I got to say this, and I know I know I got a zillion questions to ask you, but you just said something that really resonated, and I'm hoping it resonated with the audience as well. I don't have any dreams. I used to. My dream was to do what I am doing right now. That was my dream. I keep trying to figure out what's that next thing I can do. There ain't nothing. I mean, there's nothing. And I mean, I rack my mind every day. Like, what is that next thing? What is it that I can do when I'm tired of this? Well, one thing, I ain't tired of it.
Right.
And the other thing, there's nothing out here. There are things I can do, but there's nothing I want to do. I am walking literally in my purpose for existing in the first place. But this, go ahead.
That's how it has to be. I mean, I absolutely can relate to that. That's what I'm doing right now. I am doing, like, I don't have I'm always thinking about how I can evolve in this space, but everything is centered around this space where I am right now. Like,
Yeah.
What can I do within this space that I'm in? Because this is my zone. I'm in my zone right now. It's my creative zone too. And it's like, I feel like if I'm not creating, then I'm not living.
Not creating, not living. I feel the same way. And see, here's the thing. You and I could stay on this one question for the whole 90 minutes, right? So let me pull myself away from it, and we deal with it another time. Demetrius Scott put on the screen. I got to say that though. He put on the screen Superintendent Kafele, and I'm glad you said that, Demetrius, because see, that's what everybody says, but Kafele don't want that for himself. Kafele took the state test in New Jersey, passed it with flying colors because a district said, please take it. Well, I went on and took it. If they gave you like 3 hours to take it, I finished it in 1 hour. The proctor said, why don't you go back and study your answers? I said, I don't even want to be here. That's okay. Just take this. I left. They called me. You passed, right? I don't want that.
Mm-hmm. I don't either.
You and I got to find, I'm talking to a audience, you and I got to find our purpose, our niche, and then we got to be a beast in it. It doesn't mean you can't be multidimensional. I don't want someone to start writing, but I'm good at many things. Yeah, I get it. But that happiness comes when you could get down in that one thing, man, and just take it to another level. Let me go to that second question, man. This thing, I want to stay there so bad. Let me go. Hey, Tonya. Why'd you enter the field of education in the first place? And what continues to fuel that passion to this day?
So I have to go back to a story that I tell a lot about my first grade teacher, Mrs. Betty Clark. So I lived in Illinois at the time, and it was during a time that they were diversifying the teaching workforce. So I had a Black teacher in kindergarten, and I had a Black teacher in first grade. And the one in first grade was the one that made me want to be a teacher. So as a first grader, my parents were divorcing. And, you can imagine the trauma and all of the emotions that go along with it. I didn't have the language as a first grader to be able to express what might have been going on and what I was feeling. But I had this teacher who I absolutely loved, and she loved me. And I knew she loved me. She even took me home one day to have dinner with her family. She had a daughter who was near my age. She had a niece who was near my age. And I'll never forget it. We had hot dogs and pork and beans. We had cake. We had Kool-Aid. I'll never forget it because it was just, and then we played with dolls and whatever little girls do. But the impact that she had on my life, it was, and I had an opportunity as an adult to find her. So that was really powerful. And she says, I don't really remember what you were going through, but I knew I had to hold you close. And as a kid, I felt like she made a difference in my life. She inspired me to want to be a teacher. Now, I did steer away from that, when I went to college, because people talked me out. Teachers don't make any money and So I was like, okay, well, I'll major in psychology. And I came into the teaching profession as an alternate route teacher in New Jersey. But being an alternate route teacher, I knew this was what I was supposed to be doing from the time I was 6 years old. I knew it. I played school as a little girl. My siblings and cousins were my students. I'm sure they were sick of me, but bossing them around. But I knew, because of the power and inspiration of having that Black teacher, what she showed me and the care that she showed me. And I knew that I was also a good student. And she made me feel like I was a good student, and so that was the beginning of me wanting to be an educator. And I think what has driven me beyond, so I'm not still in the classroom, I'm not still in the school system, but I'm still in education because I really care about what's happening to kids. And I just feel like the role that I have now, I get to impact the people who are on the front lines working with kids every single day. And I can do it from an objective perspective. I can sometimes say the things as someone on the outside that I might not have been able to say when I'm on the inside, because people get offended, and then you can't, but I can be objective, and I can say this is, you're not cutting it. You guys aren't doing a great job here. You got to do more, like. So yeah, we could talk about what that more looks like, but really it was Mrs. Betty Clark.
Mrs. Betty Clark.
Yep.
Wow.
She was my
Remember her name.
inspiration.
Yeah, that's good stuff. You subsequently became a principal.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons that people become principals. Mine was rooted in just one thing: the young men. What I wanted to do as it related to empowering young men. When you think about your motivation for becoming a leader, was there anything specific that you said, I want to do it for various different reasons, but there's this one thing, these two things that are really driving me to want to make this transition into school leadership? Did you have one of those at all?
Yeah, I felt like I could make a difference more broadly. So I knew that I was making a difference in the classroom. Like I knew that I was recognized for that. I was making an impact. My students, data showed that, but I felt like I don't want to sound like I'm boasting, but like I had a secret sauce
Okay.
that I needed to share more broadly, that other people needed to see things and understand things, um, and do things like I did.
Hmm.
Not that people had to be me or be like me, but ultimately that they had to, that I felt like I had an opportunity to be able to influence what they were doing for kids, and that I could help them raise the bar. If the bar was low, I could help push them into creating experiences for students that were going to be impactful and powerful, like Mrs. Clark did for me.
Beautiful, beautiful. You and I were both you and I are both Milken educators.
Yes.
Mine was December 1, 2009. What's your date?
October 6th, 2006.
That's what I thought, 2006. And that's how we met.
Hmm.
And we you
No,
were
no, we met way before that.
did we?
We met years ago.
Okay.
I was pregnant with Breland, and you and my husband were both honored in Bayonne.
Men of
I forgot what it was called. Men
Yeah,
of Integrity.
men of integrity. Yeah,
And then I
Bayonne.
worked in East Orange.
That was in Bayonne.
Right, that was in Bayonne, but then I taught in East Orange. That's where I started teaching.
Oh, oh my God. And I'm thinking, yeah, okay. That's I guess that's a sign of age. Right. So yeah. Well, I think we got to know each other better then,
We did.
as being Milken educators.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, we don't necessarily always know how we got recognized, but we know that there must have been something really good going on within our practice in our various capacities. Mine was as principal, yours was as teacher.
Mhm.
Talk to us about what was it about you as a teacher that an organization based in Los Angeles, California, would find you and see fit to award you with this prestigious award, the Milken National Educator Award?
I asked myself that 100 times. I couldn't believe it, because I felt I was just doing what I was supposed to be doing for kids. It didn't seem like it was different for me. Like I just felt like, I'm doing what I need to do. And that was building those really strong relationships with students, having rigor in instruction, and believing that they could achieve beyond what was expected of them as students. I think that was partly what it was, and then some of it might have been some of the types of programming. So I was willing to step outside the box. You know, when everybody was kind of doing things by the book, and maybe that was because I came in as an alternate route teacher. I did a lot of things by my gut, and what I felt was impactful and powerful for kids. So I wouldn't always do the traditional let's go page by page in the book. I'm
Yeah.
like, how can we do things? How can we shake things up? Because to me, I felt like student engagement was really important. Even as a principal later, you know, I would want to walk into a classroom where kids' butts were in the air, you know, like not kids sitting in rows and sitting in seats. I wanted, because butts in the air indicated engagement. And so my classroom was all about engagement. And I'll never forget, there was one in maybe the first year teaching in the district where I was awarded the Milken. I remember initially, because I was new to this grade level, and I'm teaching and I'm doing what all the other teachers. This was a school that had 15 teachers in the same grade level. So it was a fairly large.
Large one, yeah.
Right. And so half of us taught language arts and social studies, the other half taught math and science. And I was the language arts social studies teacher. And I remember teaching the way the other teachers were doing. So I was new. So I'm like, well, what do you guys do? You know, that kind of thing. And they're like, they pretty much just go page by page through this outdated, horrible book. And this student said to me one day, I'm bored. And when she said that, it just hit me in the gut. It upset me, but it upset me because I was bored. And I was like, I cannot do this. I can't teach like this. And I was new and non-tenured in this district. And I went to my supervisor, who was a Black woman. And I said, you know, this way that these teachers are teaching social studies, it's not appealing to me. Do I have to use this book? Can I move outside and do some other things? And she was like, please do that. And so I did a lot of integrating the disciplines. So if I did something in social studies and in English language arts, oftentimes they were integrated. And I was very good at differentiating instruction. Like very good, where the kids were doing something. You could walk into my classroom and it would look chaotic, but they were engaged in doing things where they had choice. They weren't, and not everybody was doing the same thing. You might have some kids sitting over in this one corner doing look like they were talking to each other and having a good time, but they had been reading and they had been engaging in work. I did a lot of center work. So you could walk into my social studies classroom and see students learning the content through drama or art or, you know, a web quest or whatever. I mean, so I didn't do what my peers were doing. I was completely different from them. And my students were achieving at high levels. So, you know, we had to take the state test and, you know, my kids were achieving at 90+%. You know, I didn't know at that time, because I'm just doing what I feel was good for kids.
Right thing to do, yeah.
Right. I didn't know that nobody else was doing all of that until I went into administration. And at that point, I had a chance to go and see what other teachers were doing. I was like, oh, I get it. Nobody's teaching like that.
Yeah.
Nobody.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, all right, I get it. And that's when I understood. When I had a chance to see what other teachers were doing, I understood what stood out about my teaching. But while I was teaching, I was just doing what I thought was good for kids.
Wow. And see, in that administrative position, now you're in position to kind of unravel some of that stuff that's not working.
Right.
Because you've experienced it now. And now to remold, reshape what needs to be happening in those classrooms.
Right.
You know, let's get heavier here. You know, as a topic, I chose how is my leadership impacting each of my students. To set up my question for you, you know, my equity work frequently centers around this word each, and I distinguish this word each from all. Because I know, and even just in terms of doing object lessons, I'll hide behind a podium on a stage and say, this is what happens in an all classroom. A student can get lost. The student is in there, but you may not see him. He may blend in, she may blend in, and therefore not sustain an individuality. So I transitioned at some point over to this word each, which I consider just a critical word in any discussion where we're talking about equity, when we're talking about diversity, when we're talking about inclusion. So before I get to that question, I want to ask you this. What are your thoughts about the difference between, from the teacher's vantage point, an all mindset versus an each mindset? What are your thoughts on that?
So I feel like if we're thinking about all, we're going to forget about each. Um, it's real easy to kind of teach to the all, or which oftentimes ends up being teaching to the middle, you know, where the average kid is, or the average kid. But there aren't any average kids. You know, every child is unique in who they are. And so I sometimes feel like they're like, well, most of my kids, you know, teachers may say, most of my kids do X, or most of my kids are working, you know, here or whatever. And I'm doing this because most of my kids respond to this. Well, what about the kids that don't?
Yeah.
What about the kids who need something a little bit more individualized? Every single child has something unique about them. And even when I would group students, you know, I didn't group them the same way. Sometimes I would group them, the highs and the lows would be in the same group, wondering why are we in the same group? Because they know after a certain age group, they know who the highs and the lows are. Kids know. And they would sometimes wonder, why am I in this group? Because there's something that you can learn from one another. And there are opportunities, you know, that each of you, like there's something unique about every single student, which is why differentiation when I was a classroom teacher was so critical for me, because I knew not all of them were going to learn the same way, not all of them were going to respond the same way, but I could find ways for each of them. So, you know, while there were certain things that everybody had to do, they then had opportunities to create you know, the avenues of how they wanted to learn. You know,
Yeah.
like I want to learn by listening, I want to learn by doing, I want to learn like, and so I would always create a classroom environment where each child had an opportunity to decide, this is how I want to learn this content. And you know, while there were some things that I said that they had to do, like we have to read this, you know, but how you read it, you know, and who you're reading it with, sometimes that to me was more powerful. And that I think is what led to a lot of the success of my students, because they had choice in their learning, and they each of them had an opportunity to feel like their needs were being met. And I
Mhm.
think that's what we miss out on sometimes.
Love it. You know, there's our Milken brother, Wade Whitehead.
Hey, Wade.
Yeah, in the building. Tonya, when I think about that all each, and by the way, folks, hit that retweet button for me, hit that share button for me. You're listening to the virtual AP Leadership Academy. Hit that retweet button, hit that share button. You know, Tonya, I think about, I'm a keynoter. You know, when I think about the various aspects of the work that you and I do, my biggest passion, it should be in the workshops and all that, but it's not. It probably was at one point. I'm a keynote guy. I love the big stage, but when I'm doing that, that's an all presentation, right? And it contradicts everything equity, but a keynote is a keynote.
Mhm.
But it's not interactive, and I'm not speaking to any one person unless I establish eye contact with somebody in that audience that's nodding at me, and then I'm kind of locked in on that person or those persons. But
Right.
outside of that, it's an all presentation. And I think about that in real time when I'm on the stage versus when I'm doing a workshop
Mhm.
and I'm speaking to individual teachers in individual groups. So I'm saying that to kind of just as a backdrop to ask you the question: how can an assistant principal or principal, and you know my focus is the AP, but I know principals watch, there's many of them on here right now. How can an assistant principal or principal go about ensuring that each is a primary focus of their leadership, instructionally speaking?
Well, they can model it. You know, they can model it in the professional learning that takes place in their buildings. So either through coaching or through professional learning communities, or just, you know, PD days that they set aside, they can model how, how they want how they want teachers to turnkey in the classroom. Now I lost you on the screen, so I don't know if something happened
No,
here.
I'm here. I'm here. Go ahead.
Okay, all right.
I'm just giving you that spotlight.
I got you. I got you. So I think that, I think like I do a lot of professional learning. So training is kind of my zone, where the stage is your zone. I enjoy keynoting as well, but I do more training, at least at this point in my career. And so I model that for leaders all the time. When leaders are in front of me, I show them how they can meet the needs of all of their learners by engaging in different strategies. What are some strategies that work for some groups? Like, some people like to do group work, some people like to work independently, some people want to I don't know, do it some other kind of way. But I try to find different strategies. I use different strategies with different audiences, giving them opportunities um, to engage around the content and engage around the learning, so that they then can take that back to their educators in their buildings.
Yeah.
And the educators in turn can do that for students. So I think the modeling is really important.
That modeling is critical.
Mhm.
And let's stay there for a minute. So I'm an AP, and I'm watching this morning, and I listened to Dr. Tonya Breeland emphasize the importance of modeling as it related to the question about being that instructional leader, where I've got this focus on each student's individuality. But as I'm sitting here as this AP watching, I know that my world is largely defined by discipline. Right. I'm a disciplinarian. And then I supervise cafeterias during all the lunch periods. So there's not a lot of time for me. Like, I'm that AP watching right now. I know you're watching right now, somebody. And I want to do what Dr. Breland just said, but I'm disciplining kids all day.
Mhm.
Hey, Tonya, how do we, and this is not even in my script,
Mhm.
how do we change that reality?
It's funny because I just got a contract to work with a district where that very issue is their issue.
Mm.
And so here's the thing: as a VP or AP, you're still going in and evaluating teachers, and that's an opportunity to coach and mentor the teachers that you're working with. So you should be in classrooms. So yeah, maybe you're dealing with discipline, but there's a way that you can structure your day and structure your time where you're still an instructional leader. And I think you have to assert yourself as an instructional leader. So yeah, like, I was a VP, and they would love to stick me to the discipline piece, but I was an instructional leader first. And that came out in how I asserted myself. So I would be in classrooms, and then I would engage in conversations with my principal about what I saw in classrooms and what we need to be doing. So one example that I remember from being a VP was, in my observations, I realized there was a lot of whole group instruction taking place in the classrooms when I would walk into classrooms. So I engaged in these conversations with my my principal, and even when we had our district-wide leadership meetings, and I would talk about some of the things that should be happening in classrooms. Like, I wasn't afraid to speak up. Like, what should be happening is, this should be very student-centered and student-focused, and it wasn't. And so the more I would talk about these things, the more they would start, kind of loosening the reins and taking some of the discipline pieces off my plate, because they realized that I had some expertise when it came to instructional strategies and instructional approaches to learning. And so if I didn't assert myself, I would have been stuck like my colleague, who was also a VP, who never did anything instructionally. All of his work was almost entirely discipline. But because I'm not that's not me. I'm not the disciplinarian. I'm about building relationships with students. I'm about helping empower them to make better choices. But I'm not going to spend all my day as a disciplinarian. I'm going to assert myself as an instructional leader because that's what I am. And that's what I did. It was a non-negotiable for me.
I love it, and I guess I became a disciplinarian because I was in that kind of culture. So what I had to do was figure out, how can I be other than what the culture is dictating,
Right.
as a disciplinarian? And obviously the word culture was the issue. I got to look at the broader, the macro, the culture of the school, and what is it about this culture that is forcing me to be a disciplinarian, right? So as I figured that out over time, I could be that instructional leader that I always wanted to be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use this word "all" just for the sake of inclusiveness in this particular question. As presently constructed, do you feel that all, or each student across the country, can have do you feel that all students have an equitable opportunity for world-class education in their schools as presently constructed?
No, they should, but I don't think that it exists. I don't think that a lot of schools in our country are hitting the mark when it comes to equity.
Yeah. So why do you feel that way?
Because I still have a job, meaning I'm still
Right.
doing this work. If I feel like if we get to the point where equity actually exists within schools, then I won't be needed. My work will be complete. I will have, there will be nothing for me to do in this space.
It will be rendered obsolete, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is, we're nowhere near that. We've got schools where we continue to see students being further and further marginalized. Students don't have a voice. Instruction is not engaging. You walk into classrooms and you're bored as the observer. And it's interesting because there have been times that I've been invited into classrooms because they wanted to show me something that they were doing that they thought was great. And I mean, in my role as a consultant that may work with school districts, and I'll walk in and I'll try to find the good thing, that there's something good, because I don't want to discourage people. But people, I think a lot of it is they just don't know what to do. They don't know how to make education relevant for all students or for each student. They're not culturally responsive. And the leadership is not culturally responsive. And so we've got kids who are not seen, who are invisible. Sometimes in some of my recent trainings, I've used Viola Davis's story. Have you had a chance to read her book?
No, but I will.
So
off this summer,
it's powerful because as she tells her story, it'll make you angry, and sad, at the same time. When she tells her story of her experience as a child and as a student and the trauma that she had in her personal life, and then going to school wasn't even a safe place for her, and it's like we can't always control what happens outside of school with students. We may be able to have some influence, but when they come into our space, are we creating an environment that is entirely safe for every single student that walks through those doors? And I mean emotionally safe and physically safe.
Yeah.
We don't do that. We've got discipline issues. We've got children who there's a whole thing, obviously I'm sure you're aware of, the school to prison pipeline, and how discipline and student behavior is handled and mishandled, and how we have Black and brown students who disproportionately are disciplined at higher rates. And it starts in preschool. It starts as young as 3 and 4-year-olds and goes all the way up through to, if they can even finish high school, it goes all the way through.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. And then we've got, students who are intelligent, who nobody sees. They don't even know the level of intellect that many of our students have. And they're not even creating rigor. it's disrespectful, the instruction that's happening in some of the classrooms across the country, where students aren't in the least bit being engaged around anything. There's nothing that looks like them, that there's nothing that represents them in the curriculum, that represents them in the books. When they look around, they don't see anybody. Like, I was fortunate to have, and I wasn't in a predominantly Black school as a student when I had those 2 Black teachers. I just happened to be able to benefit from having 2 Black teachers one year after the next. That following year, I had the worst schooling experience of my life. The teacher didn't look like me, and she didn't like me, and I was the only Black kid in the classroom. Initially, there were 2 of us, but eventually he moved away, and I was the only one. She ignored me. She yelled at me. She was mean to me, and I knew I was a good student. Even as a second grader, I knew that, because I that had been affirmed in me, and I knew that about me. But I also knew there was something wrong with this teacher. And so she also was a little bit of an inspiration in that this is not who I want to be as an adult. I don't want to be the one that overlooks certain children because I have a bias towards them. And so, I've worked in urban and in suburban, and in a 2 urban districts and a suburban district. And not one child did I ever want any of those children to feel like they were othered in some way. I feel like society does that enough. When they come to school, they should be able to be safe to grow and develop as, individuals and as human beings in a respectful environment that sees them.
You said a lot, and I'm one of the things that I'm probably guilty of at the same time is I try my best to listen to my guests and read the chat at the same time, and we're talking 4 platforms, so there's a lot coming through, but everything you're saying is resonating with a lot of people, and then I can only imagine the ones who don't comment, who just watch. You said a lot that could easily allow me to take this agenda and put it in the garbage and stay right there, because it's, you're speaking my language. But before I want to continue along those lines, but before I do, someone asked me about the book behind you, and because that's my guy, I'm gonna tell them that's Ken Williams' Ruthless Equity. He was on here in November. So I think that was Bobby Morgan. If you missed that broadcast, just go to last November. I don't know what number it is, but you'll see his picture with the cowboy hat in the thumbnail, and check out that interview that we did. We did it before the book was released, but go ahead and check that out. I actually texted him and told him that the book was on your bookshelf as well. Tonya, you said a lot in terms of student individuality, student cultural identity, student racial identity. You said a lot there. So given the platform is for that AP, right? But principals are on here too. In fact, there's superintendents on here, right? Everybody tunes in. Teachers tune in. Lay people that are not educators tune in. So I want to ask you this. Given everything you just said about what's not in place, and you got these assistant principals watching this morning, and take as long as you need on this question. What can you give an assistant principal right now, or principal right now, that I can hold on to tangibly and take back into my school next week, or when schools open in this part of the country in a couple of weeks, that individuality is salient in that classroom, that my cultural identity is not being suppressed. I am who I am, so deal with it. What can that assistant principal do to make that manifest with the teachers that he or she supervises in that school? Take as long as you need on that.
That's a heavy, heavy question. So one of the first things that I would say is check your bias. Because I think oftentimes it's the biases that we hold that stop us from being able to see students, to give them what they need, to provide spaces that allow them to feel valued as individuals, to feel seen. I keep saying that because that's really important. every child needs to feel seen.
Mm-hmm.
So that's deep self-reflection as a leader, I think, is really early or first step. Do you know what it is that, do you know where your biases lie? Have you taken some time to really do some introspection and some work? So I know, like, there's a Harvard implicit bias test that anybody can take. It's free. You can go online, you can Google it. And it really will tell you a little bit about your biases. And you might be surprised at what shows up when that's on the screen. I mean, when the results come back. And so what's interesting is people have taken that test, they didn't like the results, they go back and take it again, and it shows even greater bias when they take it the second time. If we don't understand where our biases lie, then it makes it a little bit harder for us to see what we need to do and how we need to either open up doors of opportunity, build better and stronger relationships, create environments that really are conducive to every student feeling valued and that they can learn. So that, I think, is really like a great first step. But then I think building your capacity around culturally responsive leadership is really critical. I like the work of Muhammad Khalifa. I used some of his work in my doctoral studies, and because he talks about the oppression that happens in schools and how leaders and teachers perpetuate oppression, and oftentimes unbeknownst to us, we do that. We've got to look at the curriculum.
Hey, Tonya, give me an example of what that oppression might look like.
So oppression it's easily seen in the way that we discipline students, where it's about being punitive. And so I haven't been in a school for a while. So, the last time I was in a school as a principal it's been over 10 years. But even then, my approach as a principal was not to take the punitive route. And I remember I had what I called like a leadership team, and these were the teachers in the building who wanted to have their voices heard and wanted to be. I believed in shared leadership. Like, I was a very, very much a principal and a leader who believed in shared leadership. So I brought a team together, and it was voluntary, and I allowed anyone, even my naysayers, to be on that team. And they worked with me throughout the school year to address concerns that were happening in the school. And I remember fighting them because they felt that I was too soft on kids, because I wasn't punishing them and sending them home and, doing the things that they thought should have been done to the kids. And I said, these are little kids. We have an opportunity to engage them in ways that are not oppressive. It is not about sending students the message that you're not valued, you're not important, and you are not wanted here. And when we send kids out, when we send kids home, we're sending them a message that you're not valued and you're not wanted here. But when we hold those students close to us and we engage them and we build the kinds of relationships, authentic, positive relationships, which we often don't really, we use that as buzzwords a lot of times rather than really building those relationships. So, I mean, the kind of relationships where there's trust between you and the child. When we build those kind of authentic relationships with children, we can influence their behavior. That's why a student can come into my classroom or come into my office as a leader and walk out smiling, wanting to give me a hug, even though they did something wrong and they came in there because they did something wrong. It was not uncommon as a principal for a student who may have been fighting to walk out of my office having hugged me before they walked out, even if they had to go home. Like, that was not uncommon because I built the kind of relationships with kids that told them that they were important, that they were valued. So leaders have to think about, like, what is the message that I'm sending children when I'm interacting with them, when I'm creating these policies that are unfair, that are discriminatory in practice, that create barriers or obstacles for students to be able to thrive. and be successful. And so if we don't take the time to really look at all of that, we can't be effective as leaders. And so it may mean that you've got to do, and this is some of the work that I do currently, in my consulting firm. We go in and we do landscape analysis with school districts where they are looking at the policies that they have in place, how culturally responsive they are, how equitable they are. We're looking at how they allocate resources. We're looking at how the teachers are trained and what they're trained in, whether or not equity is centered in the training that they have for their staff. But what we find is that what I'm finding is many leaders will come to us because they say, we have no idea what to do, how to start, where to begin. Like they're not culturally responsive. So they don't even know how to do the work of being culturally responsive. And I think that's what is missing in a lot of our schools. And when we talk about, equitable practices, that doesn't exist in a lot of places. And sometimes it's because of a lack of knowledge and skills and competencies around this. And while I do this work as a part of my profession, I think every educator has a responsibility to their students to do this work on their own. Like you've got to do your own work and be willing to take the time that you need to take to learn about your students, their cultures, to learn about ways to open up access for them. I was meeting with the district earlier this week. We were talking about parent engagement and family engagement. And, they want to do some focus groups with their parents. And one of the leaders says, well, I think we should go to the community where the parents are. And I'm like, absolutely. Like you got to think about let's not create more barriers, but how do we find ways to bring families in, connect with families? So parent engagement is really important. I mean, I'm kind of all over the place, like trying to grab it, like all the pieces of it, because this is huge. I mean, it's big. It's bigger than both of us sitting here and everybody in your audience.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong commitment to reaching every single learner and helping every single learner be successful and follow their dreams.
I love everything you say. Powerful stuff. Before I go on, I want to put this on the screen. Now that you all have had a taste of Dr. Breland, I want to make sure that you know of her book, her current book, Fight to Make It Happen. 6 Powerful Principles to Fulfilling Your Purpose and Living Your Dreams. You can get this on Amazon right now, right? So Fight to Make It Happen. You can get it on Amazon right now, written by Dr. Tonya Breland, right? Let's keep going. Tonya, you have in your bio, and I'm going to quote you. You have a passion and commitment to increasing access and opportunities for those who have been historically marginalized, particularly Black and Brown students. Mm-hmm. I got a 2-part question for you. When you say passion and commitment, what actions does that translate into on your part? So, because it's one thing, I'm committed, I'm passionate about it, but my question is, what does that look like?
For me, it's my work every day. It's the work that I do now through my consulting firm. So it means that I'm training. I'm training educators and I'm training leaders. It means that I'm helping them to see where their districts may be vulnerable to inequities, where they may have some inadequate or inconsistent capacity around addressing inequities, and or where they may actually be equitable, where they may be doing things well and doing things right. It's the thing that I wake up doing every single day, and enjoy waking up to, because this is my life's work. And so I do it by, by training, by speaking, by I need to do more writing. I haven't done a lot of writing recently because I've been, I'm really 1 year out of being out of the Department of Ed. Today actually is the anniversary. And, so I've been, rebuilding with, getting out there and doing this work on a regular basis. So to me, it's really the work. It's doing the work with, partnering with districts and with organizations. So we also work with organizations that are not school districts because they look at they're doing this anti-bias work, some, and they need help with it.
Yeah,
it's huge. It's huge.
That part too, staying with those two words, your words, passion and commitment. We've been down this road already, but I'm asking for the specificity now with those two words, passion and commitment. I'm an AP watching the broadcast this morning, or I'm watching the video later on in the week, and I'm hearing Dr. Breland, and I'm feeling everything she's saying. But my circumstances in my school, and I'm asking, let me continue along that line. My circumstances in my school, and I've got this smaller population of Black and brown students in my school, and I really want to lock in with them because they are historically marginalized. What do you say to that AP who shares that sentiment, who's watching us right now in real time or later, toward increasing access and opportunity for those particular students, without giving the impression that he's biased toward those students, because he is the AP, she is the AP of all the students, right, under her leadership.
Right. It's funny. I just had a meeting with a woman who was an AP this week, who is in a district that does not have a large population of Black and brown students, but those Black and brown students have expressed that they feel marginalized in their school. So, she's like, what do I do? Like, like she literally is, she is in this is her thing. The school year's about to start. And she's like, what do I do in my role, in what that's the same question. And I said, you got to start with hearing your students and hearing their voices. Like, what is it that and giving them a voice. So what is it that they are saying they need? Where are they feeling marginalized? How is it manifesting in their daily lives? So what does it look like? Because it may look different for each student who may feel marginalized. So for one student, they may feel like they don't belong in this school because people think that there's a problem with them because of the who they love, or because of their faith, or because of their complexion. And so you've got to hear that student's experiences and validate and affirm that this is a real thing that's happening with kids, because this is what kids are experiencing. So when you've heard them, then you've got to look at your system. So I think that the work that has to happen for every educator is to also look at the system. How is the system perpetuating these, students being marginalized? So what in the system, promotes this and allows this and, lets it continue, even on individual basis with each individual child. So why do kids feel it's okay to marginalize one another? Why do adults feel it's okay to marginalize kids? Like, what is in our system that's causing that? So that might mean that there's some work that has to be done within that system. There may need to be some policies. So, I remember when I was a principal, and I was in an elementary school, there were children who were coming to school late. And the policy previously was that those kids would be punished for coming in late. And I'm like, these are babies. Like, they don't have control over when they come into school. This was a walking district. They don't have control over when they come to school. These are their parents' responsibility. Now, we could build relationships with the parents and try to work with the parents. And I think that that's something that we do, but we don't punish the kids. Like, that's a policy that's got to go. This doesn't work,
right?
For our system. And then I remember the tradition was, breakfast is served from this time to that time. And, if it's after that time, we're not serving breakfast. And I remember going to the kitchen staff and saying, I'm sorry, these children are hungry and we are going to feed them. And like, well, that they came late and and they wanted to push back. And I'm like, no, this is not acceptable. We do not close doors on hungry children. That is not acceptable. Or a kid would come to school and teachers calling me to kick the kid out of the classroom because they're upset. I was like, did he eat today? And the teacher like, I don't know. I was like, ask him, did you eat today? And I'm on the phone and the kid's like, no, I didn't have anything. I said, feed him.
Yeah.
Like, it's stuff like that we have control over. There's a lot that we have control over as leaders.
Yeah.
And it's like, we have to be intentional about, and it has to be non-negotiable when it comes to meeting the needs of every single student. Like, what do these individual students need? We won't know if we don't talk to them. If we don't talk to their parents when they're young enough to not have a voice, like we won't know if we don't have those kind of relationships to be able to address it.
That thing you said at the end, talk to them.
Yep.
Sometimes we just don't have the basic common sense conversation.
Yep.
And if we were intentional about forging relationship, then that conversation can have a whole lot of quality and substance to it.
Yep.
I love it. Tonya, there's this terminology that you use, I use, and everybody else uses called diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where that came from in terms of it just kind of sprung up. There's a lot of little acronyms out here in terms and so forth, and they kind of pop up and we run with them. I've said always that diversity, equity, and inclusion have always been here.
Mm-hmm.
The great teachers understood that. They just may not have had the language to apply to it. So here comes this thing, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then each separate word has its own meaning.
Right.
And then you got the people like myself and you, and then Ken right behind you there, who begin to teach on it, present on it, write on it, blog on it, whatever it is. And there's so many variations and nuances as to what it is, depending on who we're reading, who we're listening to, who we're watching, etc. So I want to get a sense of who you are as it relates to that language, because you use the language diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean to you? What are you saying when you talk to somebody using those three words combined?
So I'm talking about creating an environment where students feel valued. I've said this several times already, seen, and where we are also removing barriers and obstacles that don't allow them to have access to high quality, engaging, rigorous instruction. And that's kind of like a nutshell, but it's really like, are we creating the kind of environments so the students experience lived experiences in your school, in your classroom, their lived experiences are they feel like they belong here. Like as a kid, I love school as a kid, but I was in schools outside of that second grade situation I told you about. I was in schools and in classrooms where I felt seen, I felt valued, I felt like there was nothing I couldn't do that they put in front of me, even if it was challenging and when it was challenging. But I felt like I belonged in that place and in that classroom. Like I loved school. And so that's the kind of environment that we need to create where students love being there. Like it's a place they want to go. I mean, notwithstanding, whether they have that kind of situation at home. Again, we can't control home, but what we can do is we can control the environment and the culture. You mentioned culture earlier, the culture that we create for students when they walk through our doors. And what does that culture look like? Is it the kind of environment that they walk in immediately? I remember my son was in preschool, and he would walk into the classroom every day, and it was like they saw him for the first time. And although he didn't go by, his first name is Daniel, he didn't go by Danny. The teacher called him Danny, and I didn't fight it. It was okay because she just had so much love and enthusiasm. He would walk in, the first thing would say, Danny, like I've never seen you before, but I'm so excited you're here. Today's your first day ever. Every single day, it was like that when he walked in the room. And it's like when kids walk into our buildings every single day, they should feel like, I'm so excited you're here. Like, this is so great. Like they should feel like this is the place for them to be. And while they're there, they're going to get absolutely everything out of it from being there. That's what we are not giving kids.
Not giving it to them. Yeah, it's that word belonging. That was one of my words. It's still one of my words. And what is it about that classroom? I'm thinking about me as a teacher now.
Mm-hmm.
That a youngster feels I'm at home in this place. It's safe here. I can be me. I don't have to conform to what my peers expect me to be.
Right.
And be myself.
Right.
And I wanted to take that same, to use the slang, energy to the high school, to the principalship, where I wanted students to be themselves, as opposed to conforming to what the majority may be and what
Right.
they may be into and what they may be about, etc. So of those three words, diversity, equity, and inclusion, let me lock into the word equity on this one. The word equity, as I'm sure you have noticed in your travels, has become a politically explosive word. And I'm at the point now, this is all post George Floyd's murder. I never experienced this before his murder,
Mm-hmm.
but since his murder, I have clients who say to me in our pre-presentation meetings, Zoom meetings, phone, whatever it is, please do not use the word equity in your presentation. Now, I have refrained in some places. Others, I forgot to review my notes before I got there and went on and illuminated it, right? So here's the thing. I'm at a point now, I shared this with my wife the other day. For now on, when a district says to me, please don't use the word equity, I'm going to say our relationship has just ended, right? Find another speaker. I can even recommend some for you, but I'm not coming because you're asking me to compromise my values, right? You're asking me to fake the funk, right? And I refuse to do that. So my question for going forward, they can keep the money. The money's good. It's enticing, but I will donate it to a friend, right? So here's the thing. In your opinion, why has this word equity? Because I know why. I just want to hear from you. Why has this word equity become a four-letter word, a boogeyman, if you will, in the education space?
I think it's because people they don't want to face the reality of our history in this country. Um, I agree with you. I don't know that I can walk into a school and not use the word equity
Yeah,
or diversity or inclusion or belonging or any of those words, because it is at the core of who I am as well.
yeah,
We have to, I feel like this it's just a political machine out there, and they are operating um, with a force, a financial force behind them to come against and resist anything that has to do with helping create an environment that's inclusive, an environment where all students feel like they belong, where there's access, where barriers are removed, where students begin to learn about who they are as individuals. There's a whole movement out there, a deliberate movement to derail anything that promotes diversity, equity, and inclusion.
yeah,
And so I'm like, yeah, that's all well and fine, but if you've got little black and brown kids or LGBTQ kids or kids from different religions and kids from other different, backgrounds in your school, you've got to address this, because then otherwise what you're doing is you're othering those children, you're marginalizing them, and you're saying to them that they don't matter and that they aren't valued as individuals. And that just creates a whole nother problem, a whole nother social emotional problem. But I think people don't want to, people are afraid of, so let me back up a little bit. So I get granular sometimes when I'm doing certain trainings. Some of the issues when people decide that they want to be allies, if you will, they risk losing social capital, meaning there are people in their sphere of influence, their communities that don't agree with or don't believe that things should be inclusive, that the world should be inclusive. There's a fear out there that, because we know that the browning of America has taken place in many ways and it will continue to take place. There's a fear of losing status and there's a fear of losing their place in society. And so that fear comes out in aggression, and it comes out in resistance, and it comes out in making noise at board meetings and what have you. So there's a risk that leaders take when they say, I'm going to address these issues, notwithstanding the resistance that's within our communities, because that's happening even in our state. And our state is on the liberal side. But even in our state, in communities in our state, and I have dealt with those schools, that are afraid to push the envelope or afraid to use that term because they've got such resistance. And I say to them, then what you're doing is you're just a part of all of this. You're just furthering the inequities that exist in schools. You're furthering the bias by not being willing to address it. And I don't even have any sympathy, really, for districts that won't do something about the inequities that exist within their systems. They have control to do that. And if they choose not to, they're choosing to create these environments where students don't feel that they belong. And that, to me, that's unacceptable.
It's unacceptable. In environments that are not conducive to many students that attend that school to be academically successful in the classroom. Good stuff. I got a second parter to this. This is a tough one too. So given what we just said about equity and it being this four-letter word in some places, the boogeyman, if you will, there's an AP watching right now, I'm sure, or who will see the video later, who is in one of those spaces but has that equity consciousness. That they want to be that equity warrior, but I'm in this environment where my values contradict the broader values of this school and or district. My question to you is, how does that AP or principal function in that environment where equity can still abound? They don't compromise equity, but don't compromise their employment either. Right. How can I be that equity warrior without drawing that kind of attention to myself?
It's tricky because, I mean, like you were describing, how you shared with your wife that you can't deal with that.
Can't do it.
I would be that same person. I would feel like if this is the environment that I'm in and I can't assert myself in the area that's good for kids, like this is good for kids, like what we're talking about. It's like, then I am going to risk losing my job, and I'm willing to risk losing my job. Now, I know that's not everybody's story. So let's go back to the question that you asked, because, that is the reality. And maybe it's, somebody who has to support themselves and keep a roof over their head and they need that job. I might start looking for another one, quite honestly. But I'm going to work within the system. So I'm going to, there is a sphere of influence that you have as a leader. And there are things that you can do to promote equity as a leader, even if you don't use the word equity. So equity became a word, as you said, at some point. I don't even know when that point was, but
around 2012-ish.
Yeah. So when I was a principal, nobody was using the word equity. but I was doing equity work the whole time. Like, so I walked into a school that was a school identified by the state as a school in need of improvement. And it was a school dominated by Black and brown kids. And so it was like, and it was the school that had the largest percentage of Black kids in the district, in that particular district. And so it's like, okay, so what am I going to do in this school? So I'm going to find ways to create opportunities for these kids. I'm going to create access. I'm going to educate my teachers on how they can have high expectations for the kids that they make excuses about. Because what they were doing is like, well, these kids can't learn because, and they would give the long list of why they can't learn. And, you know, so if I'm the leader in that building and no one wants to talk about equity, I'm going to do the equity work without talking about it. And, you know, although I have a bias positively towards Black and brown kids, I care about kids, period. So I feel like no child at any point should be othered in any kind of way. So I'm going to look at, you know, what within my system can I address and change and influence to create opportunities for these kids, for each and every kid, or how can I create opportunities for how can I educate my staff to create those opportunities? So I'm going to start pointing out where I see inequities, you know, where those inequities lie. I'm going to bring kids in. I'm going to meet with kids. I mean, even as a principal, I would have goal setting sessions with my highest grade level students, every single student. It took me months to do, but they all had a one-on-one with me as a principal. I don't know anybody else that did that, but I felt that it was really important that every child was seen. And then I shared with their parents and I shared with their teachers. These are the goals that they set for themselves. And I, you know, and this is what I want you to help them work towards. You know, and sometimes their goals were lofty and it would seem based upon their grades that they wouldn't be able to achieve them. But I knew that all of them could if they were given the right kind of support and the resources that they needed. So it means sometimes that we've got to give kids the resources and the support that they need, and or the teachers the support that they need. We've got to educate I think we have a responsibility as leaders to educate all of our staff. So what does that professional learning look like? Yeah. And we can look at how you spend your money in your districts. I mean, sometimes the assistant principals don't have control over the money, but you can look at how time is being spent. How is your time being spent? How, you know, what resources are being used, and are they going towards things that create equitable opportunities for every student?
Love it. Love it. Hey, folks, we're entering the final stretch. Hit that share button, hit that retweet button one more time. Let them know we are still here. Tonya, again, to the audience, your book, Fight to Make It Happen, right? I want to read an excerpt from the book. At the end of each chapter, you have a takeaway. It's called Tonya's Takeaways. And I want to read one. I had a 4-part question, which I don't need to ask all 4 because you have answered 2 of them throughout this conversation. But I want to read this to everybody. Remember that your mindset is huge to your success. It's where the fighter in you is shaped and formed in your mind. Your mindset needs to be fed with words of encouragement, motivation, faith, patience, willpower, drive, and determination. Feed your mind daily so that you are equipped and prepared for the battles that lie ahead as you push to make it happen in your life, career, or business. See failures as opportunities to learn and grow, and never give up when the going gets tough. Build momentum by taking action and waiting for your seed time to bring about your harvest, or bring about a harvest. You can do it. Don't give up. You can fight and you can win. My question is, as I read that, thinking about the fact that everybody, on the one hand, everyone's not a fighter. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, people fight differently. What words could you give to somebody out there that may feel a level of defeat from being in this pandemic world, from just being in the complexities of school leadership world, to being in a situation where I'm not with the right principal, I don't click with this principal, it's not a good relationship, it's not a good situation for me? What words of advice or encouragement or even inspiration do you have for that person to fight within their capacity of fighting?
Mm. Sometimes that fight is fighting the negativity that's in your own mind. Not an external fight, it's an internal fight.
Mm,
And so, when you're in the midst of feeling defeated and feeling like you can't move forward and you can't go on, I think you've got to go back to your purpose. So we didn't really spend a lot of time talking about purpose. We did, but we didn't. Not specifically. But what is your why? Why have you chosen this field, in this profession? Why do you do what you do? Like, what is it that's driving your existence? Because your why, I feel like your why is bigger than you.
mhm,
Your why is like your God-given purpose for being on this earth. Like, why are you in this place at this time doing what you're doing? If you're working and living and operating within your purpose, what is that purpose? What is it that's driving you? So if we don't know what our purpose is, then we're going to get lost in the discouragement and get lost in all the stuff that can cloud our thinking. So it's like the purpose has to almost be like the guiding light, in front of us, that says, okay, this is why I keep doing what I'm doing, because I'm doing the thing that is fulfilling. Your purpose is going to fulfill you, but it's also going to fulfill a larger, I would say, God-given purpose, if you will, because faith is very, very powerful for me. And I feel like I'm here because God put me here, and he
mm,
put me here with this purpose to really have an impact in the area of, what we're calling diversity, equity, and inclusion. But it's really in the area of helping people to be able to self-actualize and to be who they're supposed to be. So if you don't know your purpose and you're not working and operating within your purpose, you're going to easily get discouraged and stray away from what it is that you're doing. I know a lot of people spend a lot of time trying to discover their purpose, but you got to ask yourself the questions like, what is it that wakes you up every morning? What is it that keeps you up at night? What is it that's really driving you and that energizes you? What do you get the most satisfaction and joy from doing? And that helps you to understand what your purpose is. So now, once you've figured out your purpose, now your purpose is what drives you in the work that you're doing every day. So if you're not walking in your purpose, you're going to easily get discouraged. And when you do get discouraged, because we do, things happen, life happens, and stuff gets tough sometimes. When that happens, if we don't hone back in on that purpose, then we're going to lose ourselves along the way. It's like you got to like regroup and get yourself, but you may need to also surround yourself with the kind of people who are going to empower you, who are going to encourage you, who are going to, hype you up. You need a hype somebody, you need a hype person, who reminds you of who you are, and remind you of, like, I've seen you put the mirror up at times. Sometimes it's you looking at yourself. Some people do affirmations. Some people, some people journal. Maybe it takes time, that devotional time. It varies from person to person, but ultimately, if we know what our purpose is and we surround ourselves with people who are going to encourage us and remind us of that, it helps us to stay on the path and to not lose hope and to not quit.
I love it. With that whole purpose conversation, I say you can either walk in your purpose or you could live somebody else's purpose.
Right.
And I refuse to be that person that lives somebody else's purpose. I'm going to walk in mine. So good stuff. As just an aside question before I get to my last, and then we'll go to those BAM impact questions. What do you think about the classroom where the teacher has an I don't see race, culture, ethnicity mindset?
Think you don't see me.
Yeah, yeah,
Simple. I mean, like I know when I walk into a room, you see a black woman. I know that. Like you can't pretend like you can't see this brown face when I go into a room. And that brown face is a part of my identity. It's very much a part of my identity and who I am as an individual. And so if you say you don't see color, you say you don't see me. And then that means that I'm not valued in your classroom the way you think that I am. You better believe I know if I'm not being seen.
yeah.
Every kid.
And then I got, another one I want to throw at you before I give you the grand finale. What advice do you have for that AP or that leader out there regarding LGBTQ students, where the LGBTQ student or given student could feel a sense of isolation from peers or staff because of who I happen to be?
Right. Right. I think the same kind of thing. I mean, this conversation is inclusive of them as well. They also need to be seen, need to be valued. They need to feel like they belong. Their LGBTQ status does not diminish them as a person in any way. And there should be nothing in your system that diminishes or others them and makes them feel like they are not seen, valued, and they belong. So I say the same thing that I've been saying. I know focus oftentimes is on that black or brown student, but it's also on the LGBTQ student. No child deserves to be othered. No child deserves to feel like, there's something wrong with them because they're different than the rest of their peers. No child deserves to feel like they are going to be ostracized. It's unacceptable to me. Every child deserves to be loved. Every child deserves to feel that they can be who they are and actualize as who they are, as how they see themselves. And I just think that schools need to create spaces. When I talk about those safe emotional spaces,
Yeah.
that's a part of that.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Last question before we go to the BAM impact questions. This is really not a question. This is a request. The school is open for some. They've been in for a little while, and there are others who will open soon. With you being the inspirational presenter, speaker that you are, what inspirational words do you have for an assistant principal who's going back into the trenches this school year for an entire school year? What can you say to that person to keep that person fired up going in?
First of all, remember why you're going there. That I think is really important. If you don't remember why you're there, you will lose yourself along the way. Constantly remind yourself of why you're there at all times. And then develop the kind of relationships with your students, with their families, even with your colleagues that where you build each other up. So, like we may not think that kids can build us up, but they can. Sometimes they build us up when they hug us, and they say, I love you. And they want to be around you. And they're like, can I come and say hi? Or they pop in to say hello, or they want to tell you about what's going on in their lives. I think those relationships are inspiring and empowering and motivating and keeps us moving from day to day to day. And so I think, tapping into that. And then, doing what it takes for you to be whole. So, we didn't talk a lot about SEL for adults, but I think that adults also have to take care of themselves. So, what do you need to be whole and to be everything that you can be? Because you're pouring out day after day after day. And so when you're pouring out, that means you're emptying out. So what are you going to do to fill yourself back up with what you need to be empowered to do the work that you're supposed to be doing every day?
Appreciate that. Good stuff. Hear those words, heed those words. Somebody out there. We didn't, this, I actually didn't finish everything. I'm just looking at the time. We didn't even get to the equity framework you created, but we'll get to that next time. Right. Yeah. Let's go to those BAM impact questions. 21 questions, one word answer, one sentence if needed. um it's not a problem as well, but to just rapid fire whatever the first thought that comes to your mind, hit it. Here we go. Is education on the right path for underserved children?
No,
Can true equity occur in America's schools for Black, brown, and other underserved students?
it can.
Does Dr. Tonya Breeland's work contribute to the progress we desperately need?
Absolutely.
If you could do a reset on your life, would your line of work be different or the same?
The same.
Why do you continue to do this work?
Because it's not done yet.
What fires you up within the work that you do?
Knowing that I can have an impact and that more and more students can be better served.
What do you love about the work you do?
I love the autonomy, and I love the opportunity to impact change.
What do you dislike about the work you do?
Nothing.
What has been your greatest victory in this work?
When people come back to me and tell me how their lives have been changed or their school systems have been changed.
What was your greatest mistake in this work?
Gosh. I don't know. I'm not sure.
No, that's all
I'm not
right.
sure. I'm not sure.
I've had a few of those responses too. That's okay. What has been your greatest challenge in this work?
The resistance that's out there.
Are you proud of your first year as an assistant principal?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Are you proud of your first year as a principal?
Yes. I learned a lot.
Who inspires you in this work?
I have to go back. I'm going to go back to just Mrs. Betty Clark. Like, she was my inspiration, my original inspiration. And then there have been others along the way.
What are you reading right now?
Ruthless Equity. I'm reading a whole bunch of books all at one time. So, and I threw in, because it's the summertime, I'll throw in some fiction. So I've been reading some of Stacey Abrams' fictional works, which are really, she's an excellent writer, but that's my fun reading. And then the other reading is anything related to equity or culturally responsive practices or meeting kids' needs. I do a lot of that kind of reading. I just picked up an old piece, literally just delivered yesterday, by Derek Bell, Silent Covenants. Derek Bell is one of the originators of critical race theory.
That's right. Good stuff. What book do you recommend for our viewers this afternoon?
Any of Kafele's books.
Yeah. I appreciate it. I hope they got them all too. Right. What do you want to accomplish that you haven't accomplished yet?
I would love to be able to do some more research.
Say it because you broke up slightly.
I would love to be able to do some more research in this work and some more writing.
Are you satisfied with where you are professionally now?
Absolutely. I love it.
What would you say to a viewer out there who continues to face closed doors?
You'll never know if the next door is going to be open unless you keep going. So don't let a slammed door stop you from moving forward. And sometimes it means you've got to create your own opportunities.
Yeah. What could you say to a viewer out there who's lost their fire?
Ooh, they need to watch this every week.
Yeah.
That'll inspire them.
There you go. And then lastly, if Dr. Tonya Breeland was a word in a dictionary, what would be your definition?
That's a great question. Passionate.
Passionate.
And fired up.
That makes sense because that's one of the first things in your bio. Passionate. Hey, folks, if you enjoyed the session, if it was beneficial, if you got something from it, if you could take something to your schools, hit them emojis for us. Give us some fire, give us some flames, give us some hearts, give us some applause, give us some bombs, give us some diamonds, some gems, whatever it is. Do what you do, and I'll do what I do, because I know this was a seriously great session. So I got to get my bat out and let you know that you hit it out the park. Grand slam, home run, Josh Gibson, Negro League style, Homestead Grays, 800 plus home runs out the park.
Thank you. Thank you.
In fact, then you came back up again and you took a different bat and you hit it out again, right? So I got two bats.
Love it. Love it.
I even got my little joint now that I take on the road.
I've seen that one. I've seen that one.
Yeah, so great stuff. And I see all the emojis. Thank you, folks. That's
Thank
great
you.
stuff. Great stuff. Tonya, how can they stay in touch with you? Social media, all that good stuff.
I'm on Twitter and I'm on LinkedIn, Tonya D. Breland. And also TESO Consulting Group, TESO Consulting Group on LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. So yeah.
Very good. Very good. And then one more time, fight to make it happen. And someone had said in the thread, it's a different cover on Amazon. Yeah, she changed the cover. This the original.
Yes.
Right. So the cover's got the woman on the front, the silhouette, I think it is. And yeah, so get yourself a copy of that. The same book, same content, just different cover. So get yourself a copy of that, and let's see if we could drive it to #1. I'll be checking the numbers all day. That's what I do. You know,
oh, awesome.
I'm a numbers guy. So Tonya, stay there for a minute while I close us out. And again, I thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh yeah. Hey folks, appreciate you being here too. Join me next week. My guest is actually on the thread right now, Dr. Vashon Smith, who is the Kansas City Middle School's Principal of the Year for 2021-22. So he will be my guest in the building next Saturday at 10:55. Make sure that you check out Facebook Live every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock with my man, Principal Sean Hurt, with Dr. Sheikah Houston, and soon to be Dr. Tammy Taylor at 10:30 with Create and Educate. And then Unlock the Middle on Sunday nights with my man, Josh Tovar, and his partner, Dean Packard. And then the Village Leadership Group on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6. Hard for me to watch that one because I'm always like either flying or, I don't always get Wi-Fi in the planes, but they're on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 6 o'clock. Roz Gaskins, Dr. Roz Gaskins, and Coach Williams. And then, my books, you know what they are. I don't need to put them on the screen. Just make sure if you don't have the Assistant Principal 50 yet, that's the main one right now. The Equity and Social Justice Education 50 is my newest one. So certainly want you to have that one in your hands. And then the Aspiring Principal 50. We'll talk about the others another time. Subscribe to the Virtual AP Leadership Academy YouTube channel. Hit that red button. Subscribe to it and watch all 121 sessions anytime you want. And share it with somebody else that may need to watch them that doesn't even know that this exists. Make sure you like and follow the Virtual AP Leadership Academy Facebook page. That's the only page I post my Sunday morning commentary, right? So I post a commentary, which is usually an outgrowth of the Saturday Academy. So the Virtual AP Leadership Academy is 2 days. It's not just Saturday. It's the Sunday commentary. I've written now, how many did I write? 76 of them, right? So 76 commentaries I've written. I faithfully sit right over there on a Sunday as soon as I wake up, and I write the commentary, and I try to get it on before 10 o'clock most times. So make sure you like and follow that page. Lastly, your diet. Oh, man. I'm looking at myself now. I got a slim fit shirt on right now, but I'm looking at myself, man. I said, I did some work, y'all, man, because I had that COVID, man. I blew up, right? And I was working out all the time. I was walking these cold streets, but that wasn't the same as a treadmill. Right? It just was not the same. So I wasn't really getting the results. I was getting the cardio work in, but it wasn't keeping my weight down. So I blew up. But now, oh man, I'm back to where I need to be because I'm being very strict about my diet. I'm getting the exercise in. So I'm saying to somebody out there, and you may need to hear this more than you needed to hear the message today, right? Because I was on the brink of death, right, with that heart attack. So, and the diabetes that came with it. So make sure that you're eating right and you're taking care of your temple, your body, right? And then while you're at it, your COVID-19 precautions, but now I got to say your monkeypox precautions. I don't know how you really guard against that, man. It seems to be so many ways that it's transmittable, but just, just think, right? Think. That's all I'm gonna say. Just think. So with that said, thanks for being here. Be here next week at 10:55. I'll be sitting right here. Have a great week. Have an extraordinary week. Have your best week yet. And before I say peace to those of you starting back up this week coming, have your best year yet. Peace. Peace. Thumbs up. Cock that fist back. 1, 2, 3. Bam! I see you next Saturday, 10:55. Stay there, Tonya.